Come correct or don't come at all.
This is the Hartzog Hustle Podcast.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And we're talking about the hustle, strategy, and mindset you need to win in the areas of your finance, your purpose, and your future.
Know what I'm saying?
If you have heart and you want to learn how to activate the power of your hustle, then this is the podcast for you, baby. For you, baby.
Congratulations.
And now, your hosts, Anthony and Jhanilkas Hartzog.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Hartzog Hustle Podcast. Happy New Year, number one. My name is Anthony, and I'm joined here by two beautiful guests. Well, one beautiful guest and one being my wife.
So I'm not beautiful no more?
Well, you are, but...
But my name is Jhanilkas, and this is my mother,
Layla.
Yes, we have a special guest. This is our first interview-style podcast.
Yes.
We will be doing more of these, but since we had her in town, we said, why not take advantage
Exactly.
and have her come with us and do our first interview? So welcome.
So
Thank you.
We had to bring her on because we always talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about business, but also a very big part of our life is just our relationships and our lifestyle in general. So, and we always talk about the hustle. So one of the biggest hustlers we know in our life is her mom, Layla. Growing up in Panama, moving out to Brooklyn. We'll get into her whole story, but Lay, just tell us where does your story begin at?
Well, my story began really back home in Panama with my parents. My father, who's a retired firefighter, sergeant, and my mom was a stay-home mom. I'm one of five. And
The youngest. That's important.
Yes. And what I know of my parents, my mom stayed home, but I know that we always sold stuff at home. We sold cakes and patties and popcorn and beer and sodas and everything just to, my mom just felt that she needed some type of independence. It's not that my dad's income wouldn't suffice, but so I know myself just growing up, just making money and just having something, a stash on your own to be independent,
And you mentioned a few things. So you mentioned your father was a firefighter. He retired.
Yeah.
So I know him as abuelo, which means grandfather in Spanish, if anybody doesn't know. Well, that's important to know that Panamanians speak Spanish fluently. I, however, missed the bucket because my mother didn't teach me. But, so I know him as abuelo, and I am currently 33 years old. In my entire life, I know him to be retired. And he is 88, turning 89 in January.
He retired at 50 years old.
So he's been retired more than a lot of people have been alive.
Yes.
And every time I see him, he's always enjoying life, and he always talks about just, money and just saving and finances. Do you feel like you got most of your financial cues from him?
From both of them. Yeah, from both of them. Because all the cars that my dad have had, he has purchased them cash. He doesn't believe in credit cards.
But did they have credit cards like that back then in Panama?
No, not credit cards back then, but back in at least 77, there were credit cards.
Okay, people were using credit cards.
People were using credit cards, but he just never believed in that. And I think that's something that maybe I don't believe in too much either.
You have credit cards.
I have credit cards, but I don't use the credit cards the way, I won't purchase anything just like that. I just do it for traveling and things like that. So
okay.
And you mentioned your mother being the one to kind of help you learn how to sell things. So
yeah, she always, again, she cooked and cleaned, of course, but we would just be selling everything, and she'll help out the families like that. She will make the cakes, and the cousin will come from the city and pick it up to sell it in there, to help out the family. So that's something that we've been doing ever since, so yeah.
And then being the youngest sibling, I know your family pretty well. Being a youngest sibling, how was that lifestyle growing up?
Oh, well, my sisters and my brothers would say I'm spoiled, but
I think all younger children are.
Yeah. What happened was at the transition with Panama. I don't know if you guys know a little bit of the story. When the U.S. took over Panama, when Panama was taking back the reins of the country. Before that, all my brothers and sisters left to come to the U.S. to come to school, college. That was very important. Education was very important in our families. But I decided to stay after high school. So I stayed until I became an adult because I just didn't have any reason to come to the United States. And I just, a mama's baby. So I stayed with my parents. So I grew up there as an adult while everybody came here and turned 18 years old here in the United States, which is a big difference.
Yeah.
Lifestyle.
To what age did you stay in Panama?
So I was 26.
Okay, so you went to college out there?
I went to college there. I taught a teacher there. I taught a 6th grade class for about 2 years, and then they opened up like a little daycare, pre-K, kindergarten in the community where I lived after Panama took over what we call the Canal Zone, which is a strip where the Americans had lived and where we lived. And then I became the principal of that little school. So yeah, I taught many of the kids, my friends' kids that are now
My
35, 40 years old, before I came up. So yeah, it's been a passion.
Did you always want to be a teacher?
I've always
How'd you
knew
fall into it?
that I wanted to be a teacher. I had a teacher in high school, Mr. Gomez, and I just enjoyed his style. That he just had to look, he reminded me of my parents, that they just gave you that look and everybody just
So that's your style too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do the same thing with my students also. And and he was Spanish teacher. And my dad had something, because we live again on the Canal Zone side of Panama, which is basically was under the American system. So I really didn't go to school under the Panamanian system. And my dad's main priority was that he didn't want his kids not to know how to speak the language of the country that we were born in. So up to this day, we still speak to my dad in Spanish. At home, whenever we call, and my mom in English. But
in school, they taught both languages, or?
The funny thing about school is that all the teachers were Panamanian. They spoke Spanish, and our books were in English. So go figure. So I cannot tell you when I started to speak Spanish or English. Everything is just
together,
one big mesh, intertwined. But that was one of my dad's main focus, and that's why I became a Spanish teacher, because I wanted to not only prove to myself, prove to my relatives and my family members that live on the other side, like we call it, in Panama City itself, where they went to school under the Panamanian government, that they only spoke Spanish. Not necessarily, that doesn't mean that they don't know English, but they're more fluent in Spanish than we would have been.
Yeah.
We were sitting on the Canal Zone
Because you were
side,
speaking both.
because we were speaking both.
So you said all your siblings left Panama and they went to United States to go to school. So they went to, was that high school, college?
College.
They all went straight to college?
Went straight to college.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine leaving at 17 to go to another country. I mean, people do it all the time on student visas and stuff, but it's not something that
they
I would
all
consider.
had what you call it again? Like they got scholarships.
Scholarships.
Yeah, one went to Iowa. That's my sister Palencia. Went to Iowa, Briarcliff, in the cold. Little black girl by herself, farm life, all that. So it was, it was rough. My sister Xiomara came to New York City. And my brother also, Latif, also came to New York City. And my brother Rogelio went to Texas. I think he went to Texas.
Remember?
ANI or something.
A&T?
One of those things.
They got a bunch of, Texas is a huge state.
He always calls that out.
Yeah.
He always talks about his life in Texas before he moved back to New York City. So, yeah.
So all 5 of your parents, siblings, kids went to college. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Make sure you move up a little.
That is amazing.
So we hear you.
So growing up, obviously, education was important,
Yes.
important to the whole family.
Yes.
And when they left Panama to go to the United States, they all went straight to college, and you were still in Panama during this time, completing your studies as well.
Right.
What made you go from Panama to United States?
Very good thing. Very interesting. So by then now, I was, again, teachings, and things started to change.
In Panama?
My mom in Panama, you know, and my mom and my dad were now separated at the time, and
Did they just separate when everybody left, or when did they separate?
They as soon as I graduated from the University of Panama,
Okay.
then my mom and my dad split up. So I did not want to be part of choosing,
So you said I'm out.
you know, choosing who to stay with,
by.
you know, because of course the comfort would be staying in the community where I lived, where I grew up, etc., etc. So in 1983, I came up for the first time with my dad, and I went to a couple of my friends' weddings and blah blah blah. And then I came up to one of my best friend wedding. Rona, in 1985. Everybody said, "Oh, you're gonna stay? You're gonna stay?" I'm like, "Nope." And I went back home. And then after that, you know, in 1986 is when I decided, okay, I wasn't gonna choose between both of them. So that's what triggered me to say, you know what? Let me give it a try.
And they currently live in the same neighborhood still, like 2 minutes from each other.
Both your parents, yeah.
Yeah, they live, 2 minutes driving. If you're walking, maybe it's a 10-minute uphill. But so when we, being like me and my cousins, used to go back home, we mostly stayed with my grandmother, but we will see my grandfather every single day because he would drive down, pick us up, or he had kids in his neighborhood, in his area, more than my grandmother did. So we would go up there and play. So it's funny that they're still in the same exact place. And he currently lives in the same exact home
Where we grew
that you
up.
guys grew up in.
Yes.
So
Paid
that
off
didn't
house,
change.
paid off car, everything's.
So that house,
Paid off.
he's been in that house for at least 50 years now, right?
Yeah, we moved to that, you know, that ranch house that they call it when I was 12.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say my age.
They put
know
the
you
numbers.
guys
They
know how I
started
look.
putting the numbers together
So
at
it's
this
at
point.
least 50 years he's in that house. So he's
Panama's
been
a
there for
beautiful
while.
place. If you never visited,
been there for a
guys,
while.
make sure you visit Panama. Because we got engaged in Panama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first time going.
2014. That's the first time you went. Yeah.
Yeah, first time
2014,
I went,
family reunion.
We got engaged in Panama, and it
Yeah.
was a beautiful place. There were some places that was a little sketchy, but
Everywhere has sketchy places.
of course,
In America.
but it's definitely a beautiful place. My best friend, he
Yeah.
actually threw a bachelor party for one of our other friends in Panama, so a beautiful
Yeah.
place to visit too. So we got you in the United States now, and you came here. What were you doing at this time?
When I came, the first thing, my sister took me around and went down to the DOE, filed papers.
Wait, so to rewind, because people always, I still can't wrap my mind around it sometimes. It's like, it's hard to get into this country. So how did you get in and be able to go to the DOE and everything, which is Department of Education, if you don't know, in New York City, where you have to apply to become a teacher. Did you just get a visa? Did you get a green card? Did somebody have to sponsor you? Or
Right. Because abuelo, as you call him, my dad worked for the Canal Zone, which was under the American government. We had they gave us privileges to apply for a green card. So my dad sponsored each and every one of us. So we all came up with a green card. Yes, we got a green card when we came. So I was already a resident of the United States by the time I came.
not a citizen, which is
No,
different.
because citizen, you have to still go through the ropes here. You have to take the test and et cetera. You have to wait 5 years after having the green card to become a citizen of the United States.
At least back then. Who knows what it is now?
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, at least
I
then.
have
Yeah.
no idea.
And we always talk about setting your kids up for success, but your father and your mom really did that by him being a firefighter and helping United
Yeah.
States and Panama. They literally gave you what people are fighting for their lives for today, which is that citizenship to the United States. And he just put that work in, and it was granted
Paid
to
off.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was granted to you.
Yeah. Because of him working for the United States. So yes, we all came up with a visa. We all got our green card, and so we didn't have to go through all that
Back and
paperwork.
forth.
Yeah.
The paperwork to get a green card, of course, but not anything like
takes.
okay, I have to have this visa, go back home. No.
And then how long did it take you to take citizenship? Was it just the 5 years and then taking the test? And
Well, yeah, I mean, you can do it whenever you want to, and I was forced to do it. I wasn't in no
Rush.
a rush to do it or anything like that. But for me to be able to take the state, New York State test and et cetera, you had to become a citizen of the United States. So I did that. So I have my dual citizenship. I did not give up my Panamanian citizenship. So when I go home, I'm Panamanian.
You go and
Oh no, they can smell you. They know you're not.
as you please.
They know you're not still from there.
But I have my passport and everything from
Right.
there too. Correct.
So you came up. You said your sister Tishichi took you around.
Took me around to the DOE and everything and applied because before I came, what we did was I translated. I went to the embassy and translated all my documentation, meaning all my education credits and everything. So it was already in English, and I just had to take a couple tests, so was just ready to go. But at that time when I came up to try to apply, every time you had to go back and recertify to see what schools or whatever was open. And so I didn't get a job right away as a teacher, so I went to work as a law firm and do the best that I could do, which was a bilingual secretary at immigration. So, yeah.
And you knew you wanted to be a teacher when you came to this country because you were doing it already. So
I was already a teacher, exactly. I was
continue
already
it?
certified. I just needed to be certified here in the United States. Yes, exactly.
Got it.
Was the process different here?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was different, but it was easier because I had my documents already translated.
Got it.
So I just had to now apply and then try to see if a school or someone, had an opening, and I was applying for a bilingual teacher. At that time, there was a need for bilingual teachers. So that's what I was able to go into that way. Also, then they give you a grace period. Like in most jobs, I think, like you have to 5 years so you could get this
Certification.
certifications and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
Is there no longer a need for bilingual teachers now?
Well, not in the area where I currently teach.
Oh, okay.
If you go to different parts of New York City or New York State, definitely, of course, in the Bronx, Bushwick area, different areas. But where I normally teach, I'm not a bilingual teacher anymore, but that doesn't mean I don't have the certification or the bilingual extension that if I decide to be, I could teach bilingual if I wanted to also.
So while we're speaking about bilingual, I'll give you a water break too, because one of the things that we have, if you guys don't know, we have a Cleaning Business University course, and we teach people how to start their six-figure cleaning businesses. And speaking of being bilingual, we have staff, and 99% of them speak perfect English.
I thought you were going to say speak Spanish.
99%, 100% of them speak Spanish.
Yeah.
99% of them speak perfect English, but there are some challenges we have sometimes where the language just doesn't, it's like a word missing or a phrase that doesn't translate over. So as we were just talking about being bilingual, that's where we call Lay, and she normally comes in and fills that gap
because
for us.
you can use Google Translate, but even with the texting, we're like, let's just hop on the call. And I would text her like, hey, I'm going to call you in 5 minutes on three-way to speak to one of our contractors, and I would just tell the contractor, hey, I'm about to call my mother, she speaks Spanish, and that's how we do it. We're just on three-way. And like I said, I don't speak Spanish fluently, but I understand a lot of it. So on the phone, I'm just like, okay, tell her to say this or ask her this once the person. So she is our translator for our business.
And if you're interested in that would be, if you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the show notes down here. Or if you're watching on Apple Podcasts, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and also leave us a 5-star review too and rating.
So you're at the law firm. I'm not going to say the name of the law firm because you just never know.
Do you know the name of it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know
Is it a popular one?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if it's popular. I just know that she used to say it growing up.
Okay.
So how long were you at the law firm before you became a teacher?
Ooh, wow, that is interesting. So from 1987 to 1995.
Okay, so that's like 8 years.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, like that's a long time. That's why I know the name.
So it took you that long to get the DOE stuff,
Yeah.
the Department of Education stuff, or you just decided to stay there?
No, it took a long time to get into a school. Everything was there other than taking a test, because until you have the job, then you go take these tests,
Extra
ATS
tests.
tests and blah, blah, blah. to be certified, but I already had all the documentation ready to start. So every year you will have to go, like, just update, recertify, and see if any school. But because majority of the family members were into the medical field and not teaching, I didn't really have anyone like
To
a
connect.
pull,
okay.
a connect
get in.
to say XYZ until Jhanilkas' godmother cousin worked at a school as a para, and then she said, "Hey, what happened to your friend so and so?" She said, "Oh yeah, she's here in the United States now." He said, "Well, a teacher is leaving, and maybe she could apply, blah blah blah." And at that time, I really didn't know Queens. I didn't know, how to move around. I just knew Manhattan at the time because I was working there in the city, and
Right in Times Square.
yeah, right in Times Square. And so my brother is like, "Okay, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. I'll take you there for the interview," and voila.
But you didn't have a car then?
I didn't have a car then. I didn't have.
Did you know how to drive?
I didn't know how to drive as yet. Nope, I didn't know how to drive or anything. Hey, New York City, jump in the Iron Horse and you get where you need to go, and you go into the buses or the dollar cabs, or So there was no need for a car at the time. But now I've got to venture out into Queens. So again, my brother took me, went to the interview. Like, "Oh, can you start tomorrow?" Like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, and that's how it began in 1995.
So with your all your siblings being here, you coming here, and your brother obviously getting you and driving you around, do you feel like you came here with some, not an advantage, but some sort of support system that was already established by the time you got to the U.S.?
Definitely. I came and I lived with my sister Xiomara, who lived right across the street from where she worked. So that was like, in her free time or whatever, she would step me around or whatever for me to know like the subway system or whatever, you do this. I mean, but again, the advantage also because I was an adult. It made a big difference because now you're already independent. You already had a job on your own. It's not like you're coming as you're 17, 18 years old that you have to basically be under somebody's rules or, And I think that was definitely a big plus. And the extended family lived in Brooklyn. So that also helped. Like Sundays, you didn't miss. I missed it, but I didn't miss home because the family always got together. Not
Sunday.
only my immediate brothers and sisters, because one was not living here, but the extended family, we got together
And still to this day, I remember when I used to go outside and play, and I'm like, on Sundays, Tony's like, every Sunday you gotta go to the same place.
Every Sunday, the same place.
I'm like,
same food,
same place, same food. That's what's happening every Sunday. That doesn't change. So that definitely passed down.
But that's a tradition. And how important are traditions in your family? Because I know you guys got a lot of them, and we adopted a lot of them into our family, into our growing family as well. So how important have traditions been to you guys over the years?
That is just tradition is very important because family is like the utmost first thing. You will hear people like, "Oh, well, I'm having a party for my baby. My baby's turning 1, and like, well, you don't have no kids, so I'm not going to invite you." Like, what?
Yeah.
Family, you just got to let the family know everybody's coming, everybody's going to be there. You can't just not invite the family to your events or.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think when we were thinking about the wedding and stuff like that, and Anthony's like, "Oh, I don't know this person." I'm like, "Yeah, but we can't not invite them." You probably never met them out of our 10 years of being together. But yeah, we grew up together and they have to be there, or even planning for our baby shower. He's like, "Who's this?" I'm like, "They know who you are. It doesn't matter." Like
they know me, definitely.
That's fine. Just they have to, you invite them, they don't come, that's one thing, but at least they know about it. So
Yeah. So family is like number one. I mean, again, there's a lot of us.
Yes, because you're one of 5, and then another first cousin side is like there's like 8 of them. And so on and so forth. And so that's how we have family reunions every 2 years that consist of like 80 to 100 people showing up, is what I should say. There's more people everywhere else, but yeah. 80
Yeah.
to 100 people showing up. So that's a big tradition.
But you came here with a support system, which is, people ask us all the time, like, how'd you get up and move to Dallas, Texas? Like, yeah, we left our, obviously our friends and family and our support system that we had there. But then we also had a few people down here in Dallas, Texas, who made that transition a little bit easier. Just like how do you get around, or where do you need to go, or who you need to speak to about certain things. So would you have any advice for anyone making a big move like that from Panama
one country to the next?
or one state to the next, or
I know.
they don't get no bigger, they move from one country to the next.
one
but,
country to the next, they don't get no big at all. And I
But
think
what advice would you give someone making a big move like that in their life?
Stay connected to family. Definitely know what goals or what is your purpose, and where you need to go to, and then you really need to not only confide in yourself, but confide in other people around you, and just be aware. I mean, if you're younger, now this generation, you guys have all these gadgets and and whatever, and you move on your own. But back in the day, it would have been a little more challenging if you didn't have people in your corner. Like if I didn't have my sister to show me the ropes, to just guide me around or whatever on her days off, or getting the newspaper back then and circling things. Because really, my first job was working at a voting place. At that time I came, I can't remember
who was in the election.
if it was president or mayor or what the election was, but I was so excited. I'm like, what, $80 an hour?
80 or 8?
80. I was like, whoa.
What election you was? What were you
What
doing
year
there?
was this?
Because they don't do that now.
That should show you. That was it.
What were you doing at this election
How long were
booth?
you there for? Well, hold on,
All
we
these
got to talk
questions.
about this a little
What were
bit.
you doing at this election place?
So for me, that was a lot of money, of course. But it was like, okay, you work in 2 hours or something like that. But it was.
It's a lot of money now.
Yeah. But, girl. I was able to walk down. I didn't have to pay transportation. I didn't have to pay lunch.
And that was your first job?
Yeah, just
Here?
Yes, in New York.
Wow.
How long? But the election season is not that long. So how
No,
long was it?
what
2-3
days?
weeks?
Like
2 days?
2 days.
Oh, just for them to come do the voting thing.
Yeah,
Okay, so like
the
2
voting,
days.
yeah. Like a day or whatever it was. Like a day, yeah, 1 day. So I was excited.
First time getting paid.
That's
So,
it.
so when did you
Comparing.
move officially into the DOE and United States school system here?
1995.
95. And
Yeah,
that was after.
my first job.
And what was that, Brooklyn?
No, that was in Queens.
So you've been in Queens your entire time that
And
you've
my
been a
entire
teacher.
time that I've been a teacher, I've been in Queens. So I don't know anything about
Other schools.
working in Brooklyn.
But we live
or
in Brooklyn.
whatever.
Well, we're from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then you eventually went to get your master's. So
Yes.
did you have to get your master's to be a teacher, or did you want to, or?
To get more money. Definitely, you need to get your master's, and then after your master's, you need to get 30 and above to be on that level. Like, you're bringing in 6 figures or more. So yes, the master's was something that I know I wanted to do anyway. So it
what
took
year
me
did
a
you do
while
that?
because. Of course, I was a single mom at the time and taking care of you and doing everything else and babysitting and running back and forth. So I waited a while to complete my master's. I think I completed my master's in 2001.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, I have my daughter already in the babysitter, and then for me to go to school and blah blah blah.
I used to be there till like 8 o'clock at night.
To be at 8 o'clock at night, and then after that, then you started going by your cousin, to
in junior
alleviate
high
that.
school.
Yes,
Yeah.
alleviate the money, and then that way on my way home from the college, I'll pick you up, So yeah,
So
it
we-
was rough.
So you're trying to get a master's, you got a daughter, you're a single mom, you're living in Brooklyn, New York, and you're trying to juggle all this stuff.
Juggle all that stuff.
Did you know you wanted to get your master's before you came here? Or was it like,
Oh yes,
okay.
definitely.
So
you
you
always
kept that
wanted to
dream alive, even
Yeah.
though you were a single mom trying to get through.
Because back home, to graduate from the university, I had to do a thesis, and that's kind of like big presentation for you to get, for you to qualify as a teacher there and as a professor, not a teacher. I repeat that. So when I came, my credentials were really for high school, and I decided not to. So I had to take a little more courses for elementary because I worked my degree and everything was for a high school teacher, professor. That means I will only teach Spanish. You see what I'm saying? Like one subject. And
they try to limit you with that.
When the opportunity came up for me to get this job at the school in Queens, and is at an elementary school, bilingual, I said, okay, I could do this. I just switched when I was applying here. Now I kind of like switched my license, and now I became common branches for elementary school. So
you've never done high school now in America?
Never done high school here in the United States.
Yeah,
no.
Only elementary.
Only elementary.
What was the major difference, or what was the major differences between teaching here in the United States and back in Panama? Was it like anything you saw in the classrooms, any sort of resource differences, or was it apples to apples type of thing?
The difference is the pay, which was one thing, and one of the differences
the cost of living
was,
is different too.
Oh yeah, definitely the cost of living was different, and to see that the differences with the kids, the families, and so I had to learn different slang or lingos, and because we call earrings something else in Panama, they call it something else here. So then we have the Dominicans call it something else. The
you had to learn a
Puerto
different Spanish, you're saying?
Right.
A different Spanish slang because,
And, I didn't understand what was, for me, a TV screen is a pantalla, and for them, they were talking about earrings. So, those little things that it's like, what? But not grammatically, so. But when they're having conversations with them or having conversation with an adult, I was like, but then I realized, okay, that's what they're talking about.
Spanish slang.
Spanish slang.
Did you feel like one schooling system was better than the other? Like you felt like there was a better schooling system in the United States or in Panama?
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, the school system that I grew up in, I can't speak about what the Panamanian government, because I didn't go to school under the Panamanian government. I would say that it was kind of basically the same. I mean, but because of the environment and because of the classrooms weren't as large as here, it's more of a community, like maybe like down south, like you live in small communities and everybody knows each other. So it made a difference, I think, a lot, because the teachers will, and again, you're talking about 40 years ago.
Yeah.
The teachers will be able to pick up that phone and speak to your parents. And so it was a community effort. And I think that influenced the school system.
So what about the school system in the United States when you first got here?
Yeah, compared to now. I know it's a whole different ball game.
So you mentioned the community aspect in Panama. Like the classrooms were small. You were able to give that probably more direct attention.
Right now, the
classrooms are bigger now, right?
Well, depends. Outside of COVID, obviously, but prior to COVID, it's about 30, 33.
I always had, I'll tell you guys, although COVID, I understand we went through COVID, but last year was one of my best years of my life because I only had 10 students physically sitting in front of me. From the time I started working in 1995, I've had 35 to 32 students. So I was in heaven last year teaching 10 students. I know everybody was falling apart around me, but
were you in heaven with the tech issues?
Girl, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were able to give those students more of you?
Oh, definitely. We had such a more of a relationship. You could, behind a mask, you still see their emotions. They were all coming, and it's like right now. I mean, many of my students back then also still contact me. But last year was just a different group because the intimacy, your dedication, you even when we went remote, you're able to speak to the parents like, put your mom on, It's no like you call in someone or you send a letter and you have to wait for that response, So it was more of an immediate response, an immediate connection that we had with the parents. So, a couple of good things came out of COVID because the parents were home also.
Yeah.
So you're physically
More
able
attentive.
to more attentive, know what's happening. The kids can really hide. Like, I don't have a homework. The computer will tell you, you missed this homework. So it's not like it's on the teacher. Like, the teacher doesn't like me. It's in black and white. So that aspect, as you asked, I think we're in a different. America is one of the major powerful things in the world, system too. And but I think I had a great education back home. I think the education back home was different from here. The way the teachers taught, yes.
But even, you hear people talk about that, like people learn multiple languages in other countries. People do. So nothing against America's system, obviously, education
Right.
system. But I think there are a lot of other countries outside of America that are probably doing a better job when it comes to education.
Right.
If you think about Luka Doncic, basketball player, Mavs basketball player, he speaks like 5 or 6 languages.
Yeah.
All of them that come from another country
Right.
speak multiple languages.
Kobe
compared to-
Bryant, because he traveled around to different school
Right.
systems
And
too.
so, like, all those things, you kind of think about that, even though
Right.
America's a powerhouse,
Right.
and think they do everything better. But in other countries, they do a lot of things great, too, that we can learn from.
And I think also because I think it has to do maybe also with the weather, a lot of things, because we were exposed to everything. Unfortunately,
sports,
you are, my daughter don't play no sports, but I played softball, basketball, volleyball. We ran track. I know how to swim. She doesn't. I was in
Let
the
me say, I
cheerleading
can swim
squad,
underwater.
you
The thing
know.
is, you can't just swim. Who teaches you how to do these things? That's the thing.
Because in school we learned that. Those are the
Yeah.
things that we learn in school. So then you either have to go to a specialized school or you have to go to a private school and you guys had to wait to reach the high school to be able to be
Yeah.
exposed to
Just
that.
some of those things, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's also a New York thing as well,
Yes.
right? So down here in
Yes.
Dallas, that would be a bit more accessible. Those things are more accessible than it is in New York for whatever.
The weather.
Yeah, but it
Weather.
ain't cold all year round
I
in New
agree.
York, and so I think it's also the space
I
in
was
New
gonna say
York
that. I was gonna
specifically.
say that.
Yeah, you do have to go to specialized schools because once I went to high school, I went to not what they call a specialized school in Brooklyn, but it was one of the top schools, Edward R. Murrow. They had tennis, bowling, all those
Exactly.
other things.
Painting, art,
painting,
drawing.
art that other high schools don't have in Brooklyn. So it does vary when it comes to New York, but I think in these other like southern places where there's more space, there's more accessibility, they have everything else that you would have
Well, New York
experienced.
City, because if you go into
Yeah, New York
Long
City, too.
Island,
Yeah, exactly.
the people out there are exposed to that because the kids are in soccer. They're in every time my friends have to run, so in
Got
New
their
York
soccer van.
City, there is because no space and everything else.
Yeah.
And you always hear people putting down the public schooling system, but you teach in a public schooling system. Do you feel
Yeah.
like as a teacher, you're given the resources that you need to make sure your students succeed?
Yes, I think we definitely have the resources. The problem is, again, the class sizes.
Yeah.
The class sizes have always been an issue. But again, where are we putting them? There's no room to even expand on our school system. Like the school building that I'm in is over 100 and something years old. They're not wheelchair accessible.
Yeah.
They're not, so it's just those type of things. It's like the big churches back, in our communities back in Brooklyn and, in Queens. And it's just not, there's no room. There's no, so yeah, I think that you could live or you could be in any. It's what you put into it and what you get out of it.
Yeah.
In anything. So I'm not bashing, the public school or anything like that, because I was a product of a public school.
We all were.
So then, it's what it's what the choices we make, and I think that's very important. The choices we make, and sometimes where it leads us to, because we could come from a community, you could come from somewhere, but you don't have to be that community. I remember Jhanilka coming home. I think she was like in 5th grade or 4th grade or whatever, and she's like, "Ma, what does a project person looks like?" I said, "What do you mean?" So yeah, because when I told them I live in Glenwood Housing, they're like, "You don't look like you live in a project." So again, and those are the conversations that I had with her. I was like, well, because you don't go around cursing, or you don't go around looking a certain way. You don't have to look or act where you live. You can be who you are and uplift your community, because at the end of the day, that's where you live. So,
Right.
yeah.
So you've been a teacher for, let's go with 28 years now.
Yes.
Is that the number, 28?
Well, if you start 95,
28.
what is that? 25, yeah. What about
27?
27, 28? The school year kind of
Yeah.
starts in the middle. So there you go. 27, 28 years. But that's not the only thing that you do, right? So that's the question is of like when it started. So she also does hosting, if you will, right? Hosting for Sweet 16s, weddings, parties in general, and decorating as well. So when did that start, or when did you know you were interested in that, or that you were good at it, or any of it?
Wow. Well, we always decorated and cleaned and changed curtains and all that with my mom. Summertime, well, it's always kind of like summer in Panama, right?
But there's a rainy season.
It's a rainy season, so then you change your curtains, and Christmas time was a big time too, and all that. But I may say it started for me when my first goddaughter, Sharika, was going to be 1 year old. Her mom, which was one of my best friends, and her husband were here in the United States, and they joined the Coast Guard. So Sharika was left home with her grandmother and and her aunts and stuff. Shout out to Rona. And so we knew that we had to have this huge birthday party for her. And let me tell you, you guys talk about garages, or we call it car porch or whatever. We combined both garages, the neighbors and theirs, and a big front yard to have this huge birthday party for my first godchild, Sharika. And that's when I knew that my passion was there. My father also made piñatas, and we decorated the piñatas. So then I learned how to make piñatas. I just don't know how to draw.
You hit?
Yes.
Stuff. I never knew that. Okay.
Yes.
So when we used to have, when I was younger and I had my birthday parties, they would have him make it, and somebody would bring it up in the plane. He'll make it in Panama, and then whoever's coming back from Panama to New York would bring it with them, because there's no shipping really. I mean, you can ship things. You can ship things, but it takes weeks to get there. So
that's when I knew, we went all the way out. We had stuffed animals all over. We made the goodie bags. We decorated. We did all this. So that's when I said, So every year, for her birthday, and she left, then my other goddaughter, and so on and so forth. Then we started that. So of course, when I had my daughter, forget it. I had all the ideas.
We had pictures to put into the video.
Yeah, all the ideas will come into my head, and okay, I'm having this party and that party and that party, and we just ran with it. And I would ask someone to draw something. As a matter of fact, I still have a big poster at home.
Ballerina?
I think I just got rid of the Little Mermaid.
Oh, okay. There was always all kids' birthdays party have a theme, but it's very specific, and you go all out. I now call those party like drug dealer party.
Why is that?
She's crazy.
I say that because if someone of like maybe you or someone that a birthday party usually is just like I go to Party City and I just buy things maybe the day before, a week of, and I just have my child's party. That's okay, which is totally fine. The extent that it goes out to now or just even back then or how we would throw parties, it looks excessive. I'm gonna be honest. So it looks like I say drug dealer because it looks like you have a bunch of money, and
I guess only drug dealers have money.
Well,
Back then.
obviously not. But back then, yeah, exactly.
Back then, drug dealers.
Back then, drug dealers had money.
Back then,
So-
drug dealers had those type of parties.
Yes,
That's what
yes.
it
Now
seemed
it's
like.
more normalized, but back
Now
then,
it's a bit more normalized that people are having grand baby showers and grand things for their kids and all this stuff now. But back then, those type of parties, you didn't really see that. So growing up, it was a norm. So when I would go to other parties, it was kind of like, okay, what is this?
Yeah.
Because then you're leaving with party bags, with a book bag of the theme. You may leave with a chair. Like, these are big gifts you're getting that every kid is getting. There's 50 kids. So where you getting this money from? It's kind of like...
You plan the
Basically.
whole year for, you choose a theme and plan the whole year. You put away your money and start buying stuff.
Right.
And, and back then oriental trading, and you go into the city where you buy things in wholesale and you put it away, and so you plan, and that's how I got into the decorating, organizing, and hosting and everything else.
Is there a reason you never did that full time? Because I have her brother, Rogelio. He says all the time he's been trying to tell her, get your business cards, start taking pictures for years, start charging people, because she does not charge people, which is beyond me, to do these things. Is there a reason you never actually went and did it full time?
Oh, because it always ended up being either family members that we're doing stuff for or friends.
You can still
and
charge
it was a lot of, back then, word of mouth. We didn't have the internet and the IGs and the whatever to have that exposure. So it's like word of mouth, a friend of a friend of a friend, or a cousin. Or we'll say one of my cousins always used to tell people, like, because she was more like a social butterfly, like, hey, I have a cousin that does decorating. Oh, I have a cousin that can host your Sweet 16. Oh, I have a cousin that can help you do the choreography. And that would have been me. So then my sidekick, Blondie, shout out to Blondie, me and her, she would come out, because she's younger than me, she'll come up with a nice little steps or whatever. She will listen to the music, and then we'll put things together. And and we just did Sweet 16s, and then people just give us,
But
whatever.
even now, you still don't charge.
Yeah.
do you have any goals that you do want to have with this? Because this you've been doing technically, like, decorating and planning and organizing
for over 20 years.
Two decades at that point. So we really put this on the resume. Layla Frey's organization and decorating and planning services, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something you would do after you're done with
Teaching?
Teaching?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But will you charge? That's the thing.
I have to.
gotta-
I would have to charge, definitely. That's something that I enjoy. Something is like a passion. Like, I have all the ideas in my head, and and it just starts snowballing. I don't have the facility to keep things. I keep some of the things. Other than that, I will just do it. I'll go do it for people, and
We spoke about buying you an event space too.
Yeah,
Like,
but then I said she wouldn't follow through.
buying you an event space, getting you the decorations, and you doing like your own thing. But she's like, well, she wouldn't do it and stuff like that. So I wouldn't want to force you to do something you don't want to do, because at that point it wouldn't be a passion anymore. You're kind of forced to do it.
yeah, true. I
That's one of the
agree.
things about when you talk about people just pursuing their passions. Like, once you start doing it, once you start being forced to do it, now you no longer have that enjoyment in doing it anymore.
Right.
So we never want to take that from you. So it seems like you still enjoy doing it.
Oh yeah, and I definitely enjoy doing it. And again, to see not only if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Nobody's perfect, but if I don't like it, for me, I'm definitely not going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And of course, it's like you go to a hairdresser. You may tell her you like this style, but she's going to tell you, listen, this doesn't really look, so I kind of like
Guide people.
Yeah, guide people and thread lightly, because you don't want to offend anyone, because there may be, I would say, can you live without this, or do you have to live with this? And then it will say, well, I need this. I said, okay, I'll leave that, and then I'll say, okay, what about this? I'll give you another idea or stuff like that. But yeah, right now the space to keep things, and again, as you said, like for me to have an event space, I want it to be something that I can be really do it if not on a daily basis, at least 3-4 times a week, something that I know that it's not only bringing in revenue, because then I'm thinking, okay, my God, they pay for this event space, and I'm not doing
now you
anything
gotta make
about
money
it.
on it.
Yeah, exactly.
The pressure's on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But I think the past few years, you had got an iPad and you started taking pictures more of the events that you've done, so that you can reference back.
Right.
If ever anybody needs it. The thing about it is no one asks for references when they come to you, right? They just say, can you
word of mouth.
Can you help
Word of
me?
mouth.
Can you help me? Because I know that you do it. I've heard of it, or maybe was at an event. I know that, she's helped my friends do bridal showers, baby showers, repasses, the whole nine. Like, you've done weddings.
Sweet 16 was my
Sweet 16
thing.
was a big thing
Like,
back then, but
weekend
I don't
was
think
like
people are
that.
having Sweet 16s anymore.
Not the way they used to.
Not
have
the way
Sweet
they used
16,
to.
because now everybody's traveling, and who wants to go to Greece? And
16 years.
16 things are a little different now.
Yeah.
But you mentioned most of your references come from word of mouth, and that's the strongest form of marketing because that's your Yelp, that's your Google, that's your reviews, that's everything. Just by somebody saying, hey, I have this person, Layla, she does decorating for me. Oh, remember that event you came to? Yeah, she did that event.
Yeah.
So now
And
they're
that's what
booking you.
happens.
That's the strongest form of marketing and references you could have.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Very
they see
true.
something, or they see something there. They're like, who did this? And the person's like, I don't know, but she helped me plan it. So you're going to have to ask her, like things like that.
Yeah.
And so you
Would
do
you-
have the reference.
Would you want to do more of the entire event planning, or would you want to be like a coordinator where you tell people, you kind of delegate the stuff to
The
people?
coordinator.
Coordinator.
Yeah. I will plan out everything, like the blueprint of what needs to be there and where it needs to go, and coordinate, and then have
somebody
Kinda like
team
an
or
architect.
whatever.
A team to do it.
Exactly. Because again, I don't have the space, I don't have that, but I know certain things that you could have, that will make your event look
at a good cost too.
yeah, reasonable, because I've been doing it for a while. I mean, some of the little mom and pop shops in Brooklyn that I went to, closed down or whatever, but we still have the contacts, So now people are doing stuff from their home, and we will contact them and like, oh, you're kidding me. Like now for my daughter's baby shower, finally it's your turn. And it's like, so you go back to those, my old references, and they're like, oh, definitely,
Yeah, she's helping out with the baby shower right now too. So when y'all see it posted, y'all know who did it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we had anything else we wanted to ask.
If people did want to book your services, we gotta get you a phone number. We gotta get you something where people listen. If y'all
yeah,
interested,
because if someone listens, they may say,
If you're in
"Oh, I
New
have
York
an
City-
event in New York City that I want to book this person." How can they contact you? Don't say your phone number.
We're gonna say drop a comment if you're interested in her services. Layla Frey's organization and decorating services. Drop a comment.
So, I mean, before we actually go, even outside of decorating and stuff for parties and stuff, you also do decoratings in homes. So, kind of like
organizing,
organizing, helping you declutter.
Oh, yes.
Kind of like an interior designer, if you will. Yes, we'll still be going to the Home Goods and Target, but telling you what to purchase, where to put it. I mean, I had a friend down here, which I only knew the person maybe 2 years by the time she came down. I dropped her off at her house. They went shopping to buy things, decorated her home and everything like that. So you also have that side of it. So it's a big business you have that you can have.
I mean,
going.
you've moved us into every apartment we've ever had.
Yeah, that's why she's here.
And moved us into our house as well.
Yes, exactly.
And got things in order, and the cabinets done, and the dishes in the right places, and the boxes, and
yeah. So that's a huge business that you have going on. But
yeah, interested in booking her services, just drop a comment. We'll connect y'all. Oh, you could drop your IG.
Yeah. Do you know the name of it?
My IG?
Yeah.
Of course I do.
Go ahead. What is
Tell
it?
the people how
can
to
people
find you.
contact you?
I leave it up to you guys to do
No,
that.
go ahead, say it.
Blunks. That's it.
No,
you
it's
spell
not.
it?
There's a number attached.
Oh, 07, I think. I don't even remember now.
Oh, God.
Her IG will be in the show notes. We'll make sure that we tag her.
Blunk 7. BLUNKS 7. Is your
If you're interested in her story, or you're interested in contacting her for any organizational services, whether it be a party, a bar mitzvah, a baby
Never done
shower,
one
or
of
just
those.
moving into your new home, you could definitely reach out to Lay. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Thank
Any
you,
last words?
guys.
Anything else you would share with people about? I think you had a question that we didn't ask about like entrepreneurship, or that if you ever consider yourself to be an entrepreneur at all because of the businesses that you have. It's not an official LLC, but the things you do on the side. Have you ever considered that at all?
No,
Okay.
I really never did, but I know I check all the criterias.
Yeah.
I check all the boxes.
And you know what's crazy about that? So there's a lesson in that. You don't got to get the fancy paperwork, the fancy website, the fancy documents to have a business that you can grow and expand. So don't let that stuff hold you back from getting started, because she's been started for 20 plus years now at this point.
Yes. But any last words from you for our audience?
Follow your dream and, go through with your passion. And again, always have your purpose in mind. And, keep God first.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, rate the podcast. Give us feedback if there's anything that you have. That's it on our side.
Yeah, make sure you leave a review. We got 60 reviews in a couple weeks, man. Next time we drop an episode, I want to see we at 70, 75. So
Yes.
appreciate y'all guys being here. Peace.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of the Hartzog Hustle Podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. And follow Anthony and Jhanilka on Instagram at The Hartrimony. That's TheHartrimony. Keep hustling, baby. Keep hustling, baby.
Get that money. Get that